Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are gonna be jumping headfirst into the world of AI and how it's like totally changing urban planning.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're gonna zero in on MIT's CityScope project,
Okay.
which is a platform that's using AI to like take on some of the toughest challenges that our cities are facing.
Right.
So think about it, a future where traffic jams are like a thing of the past
Yeah.
and resources are used super efficiently. That's the kind of future that CityScope is trying to build.
Yeah, it's really interesting how CityScope is tackling this issue that cities have been dealing with forever.
Yeah.
They just haven't been able to keep up with, the growth and the traffic and all the resources and the
Uh,
models that they have now. They're just not cutting it.
It's almost like they're trying to like solve a Rubik's Cube with one hand tied behind their back.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not going to work. So how does CityScope actually work? What makes it so different?
Well, you can think of it as like a super high-tech simulator for urban planning. So it gathers all this real-time data
Yep.
from tons of sensors all over the city.
Like what kind of sensors?
Like traffic cameras, public transport, energy grids, you name it.
Wow.
And then it combines that with historical information, and that gives planners this really clear, dynamic picture of what's going on in the city.
Oh, I see. So it's like instead of using those old static models,
Exactly.
CityScope is creating this living, breathing model.
Right.
Okay, so then what kind of AI is powering all this?
Well, CityScope uses this really powerful combination of machine learning and data visualization.
Okay.
And it's not just simple algorithms. It uses really sophisticated stuff like deep learning and reinforcement learning.
Wait. Back up a sec.
Sure.
Deep learning and reinforcement learning.
Yeah.
For those of us who aren't data scientists, can you break that down a bit?
Of course. So deep learning basically means you're training these artificial neural networks
Okay.
to see patterns in huge amounts of data.
So it's like teaching a computer to like see the world like we do.
Exactly.
Wow.
And in CityScope, that means it can figure out trends in like traffic flow, how pedestrians move around, and resource consumption.
So it's like giving the city a brain that can learn and adapt.
Exact.
And what about reinforcement learning? Where does that come in?
Well, reinforcement learning takes things a step further.
Okay.
It's like training AI agents to make decisions in these crazy complex environments. So they learn from their mistakes. And in CityScope, that's used to optimize things like, traffic light timing, bus routes, even where to build new infrastructure.
Wow. So it's like having a team of like super smart city planners working 24/7,
Right.
just making everything run smoothly.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it all boils down to results, right? Has CityScope actually made a difference?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Really?
In some pilot projects, CityScope has shown some pretty amazing results.
Like what?
Well, for example, in one city, they were able to cut traffic congestion by 15%.
15%.
Just by tweaking the traffic light timing based on real-time data.
That's a huge difference. What would that mean for like a person's daily commute?
Well, you could save a lot of time, obviously.
Yeah.
Use less fuel and even have better air quality.
Right.
Think about getting back all that time you'd usually spend stuck in traffic.
I mean, that's the dream.
Exactly.
More time for stuff we enjoy, less time wasted.
Yeah.
So it sounds like CityScope isn't just about making cities more efficient. It's actually about making people's lives better.
That's right.
But I imagine a project like this has got to have some challenges, right?
Oh, for sure. Like what?
Well, one of the biggest ones is just dealing with the sheer volume and complexity of all that data.
Right.
Cities generate so much information.
Yeah.
And trying to understand it all requires some serious data processing and analysis.
So it's not just about collecting the data.
No.
It's about making it useful.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so what about the human element? How do city planners actually use CityScope in their work?
Well, CityScope gives them this interactive platform.
Where they can visualize all these different scenarios and test out strategies,
Yeah.
and they can actually see the impact of their decisions in real time.
Oh, wow.
It's like having a virtual sandbox for urban planning.
So instead of just going with their gut or guessing,
Yeah,
they can make decisions based on real data.
exactly.
And that gives them a lot more confidence.
Right.
What about the public? How are people reacting to this whole idea of AI-powered urban planning?
Well, there's a lot of excitement out there,
Yeah.
especially among people who want to see their cities become more livable and efficient.
Makes sense.
But like with any new technology, there are some concerns too,
Yeah, like what?
mainly around privacy and data security.
It's a really good point, right?
Because CityScope is gathering all this info on how people move and behave in the city.
So how do we make sure all that data is used responsibly and ethically?
Well, transparency and accountability are key.
Okay.
The developers of CityScope are trying to build trust
Uh-huh.
by being open about how the data is collected and used.
And they're making sure it's protected.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're actively working with the public to make sure CityScope benefits everyone.
That's good to hear. So it's all about finding the right balance
Yeah.
between innovating and being responsible.
Exactly.
Now, I know you're super passionate about promoting responsible AI.
I am.
Could you tell us a little more about at AI for the People
Sure.
and how people can get involved?
Well, at AI for the People is all about fostering discussion
Okay.
and raising awareness about the ethical side of AI.
Makes sense.
We really encourage everyone to follow us on social media, join our online discussions,
Yeah.
and just share your thoughts on how AI should be developed and used in our society.
That's awesome. It's the great way for people to learn more
It is.
and have their voices heard.
Yeah.
Speaking of making your voice heard, I want to hear what our listeners think.
Okay.
How do you imagine AI changing your city?
Yeah.
Head over to the comments and let us know.
Huh?
And don't forget to tag at AI for the People so we can see your ideas.
Right.
We'll be back in a bit to explore even more about CityScope
Right.
and how it could impact the future of our urban spaces.
Sounds good. You know, we've been talking about how CityScope is already making a difference in cities today,
Right.
but what's really exciting is how it can shape the cities of the future.
Oh, yeah, the future.
We're facing some big changes.
Like what?
Population growth, climate change, not enough resources, and self-driving cars.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Those are just a few.
Yeah.
And CityScope can help us get ready for all that.
Okay, so it's like we get a sneak peek into the future,
Kind of.
but instead of just guessing,
Yeah.
we have data and AI to help us.
Right.
So how does CityScope actually help us deal with all those future challenges?
Well, it helps us break free from those old urban planning methods.
Okay.
You know, the ones that use static models that get outdated so quickly?
Right. Yeah.
With CityScope, we can be much more dynamic and responsive.
I see.
We can adapt to changes and anticipate future needs.
So we're moving from like a reactive approach to a more proactive one.
Exactly.
Instead of just putting out fires, we're actually shaping the future.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so what are some specific examples of how we could use CityScope for these future challenges?
Well, let's take self-driving cars, for example.
Okay, yeah.
That's going to completely change transportation in cities.
Right.
CityScope can model how they'll impact everything.
Like what kinds of things?
Traffic flow, how much parking we need, even the design of our streets
Wow.
and our public spaces.
So we could use CityScope to create a city that works for both human drivers
Yeah.
and self-driving cars
Exact.
and make transportation super efficient.
Right.
That's really cool.
And it goes way beyond just transportation.
Okay.
We can also use CityScope to model the impacts of climate change.
Oh, wow.
Imagine simulating rising sea levels.
Or like extreme weather.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then testing out different strategies like seawalls or green infrastructure.
So it's like we're not just along for the ride.
No.
We can actually steer the course and create a more resilient future.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Awesome. And the best part is this approach can work anywhere,
Really?
from a small town to a huge megacity.
So it's like a universal language for urban planning.
You could say that.
And the key is data.
Yeah.
Using data to make smarter decisions no matter where you are.
That's the idea.
But with all this potential, are there any downsides?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
We definitely need to be careful with these powerful technologies.
Okay.
One risk is becoming too reliant on data and models.
And forgetting about the human side of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to remember that cities are about people and communities.
Right. It can't just be about crunching numbers.
No.
We need that human touch too.
Absolutely.
We've talked about accessibility
Yeah,
and making sure everyone benefits,
Right.
not just the wealthy.
that's crucial.
How do we ensure that CityScope promotes equity?
Well, that's where responsible development comes in.
Okay.
We have to be intentional about involving communities that are often left out,
Okay.
marginalized communities,
Well,
people who don't usually have a say in these things.
right.
Their voices are so important
Yeah.
if we want to create a city that works for everyone.
So it's not just about the technology itself.
No.
It's about who has access to it,
Yeah.
how it's used.
And who benefits?
Which brings us to a bigger question.
What's that?
What does it mean to be a citizen in this data-driven city?
That's a great question.
Our digital footprints are becoming like an extension of ourselves in the city.
It's true.
Our movements, our choices, our preferences.
It's all being tracked.
And analyzed.
Yeah.
And that shapes how we experience the city.
Right.
It feels like a whole new era of citizenship.
It does, doesn't it?
Where our data is as much a part of our identity as our physical address.
Exactly.
And that makes me think about agency and control.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Do we have any say in how our data is used?
That's a key question.
Can we opt out if we want to?
You need to figure that out.
These are some big questions we need to answer.
Yeah.
As we navigate this new urban landscape.
For sure.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But it's a conversation we need to have.
We do.
If we want to create cities that are truly smart.
Yeah.
Sustainable.
And equitable for all.
Exactly.
And speaking of conversations,
yes,
I want to hear from our listeners.
Me too.
What are your thoughts on AI shaping the future of our cities?
Yeah, let us know in the comments.
Let's discuss.
And don't forget to tag @AIForThePeople.
Yes, please do.
So we can keep the conversation going.
Right.
We'll be back in a bit.
Okay.
To dig even deeper into the ethical considerations of all this. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been talking about how MIT's CityScope is using AI to totally change urban planning.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, it's not all like sunshine and roses.
Right.
There are some pretty serious ethical questions we need to think about.
Definitely.
As we move into this data-driven future.
Yeah, we can't just get caught up in the cool new tech.
Right.
Without thinking about what it means for privacy, for equality, and even what it means to be a citizen.
Exactly. And we talked a little bit about data privacy earlier.
Right.
CityScope uses tons of data from all those sensors around the city.
Yeah.
And that data could be used to track people's movements, their habits, even their preferences.
It's a real double-edged sword.
Yeah, how so?
On the one hand, this data can be used to make city services better and make everyone's lives easier.
I see that.
But on the other hand, it raises some serious concerns about surveillance.
Right, and potentially losing our privacy.
Exactly.
It is kind of creepy to think that, like, every move we make in the city could be tracked and analyzed.
It is.
So where do we draw the line?
That's the tough question.
Yeah.
Where's the balance between the benefits of all this data and protecting our individual freedoms? That's where transparency and accountability are super important.
Okay, how so?
We need really clear rules and regulations to make sure this data is being used responsibly and ethically.
You can't just hope that it'll be used for good.
Exactly.
So it's about setting up some ground rules and values to guide how we use this technology.
Yes, exactly.
But who gets to decide what those rules are?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is?
It can't just be the tech people and the politicians making these decisions.
Right.
We need everyone involved, citizens, community groups, privacy advocates.
Everyone has to have a say.
Yeah.
So it's about having a conversation as a society.
It is.
About what kind of future we want.
Yeah.
And making sure that technology helps us get there.
Exactly. And we need to have these conversations now.
Yeah.
Before it's too late.
Before these technologies are so ingrained that we can't change course.
Exactly.
And speaking of things we need to address, we can't forget about accessibility.
Right. That's crucial.
We've talked about how important it is to make sure that these advancements benefit everyone, not just the wealthy and privileged.
Yeah, we don't want to make things worse.
Right. How do we make sure CityScope creates a more just and equitable city for everyone?
Well, it's a complex issue, but we need to invest in things like digital literacy programs, make sure everyone has affordable internet, and design these technologies to be inclusive.
So that everyone can use them no matter their background.
Exactly.
It's about making sure everyone has the tools and knowledge to participate in this data-driven future.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just access.
Okay. In what way?
We need to really listen to the communities that are often left out of the planning process.
Right, those marginalized communities.
Yes, their voices and perspectives are so important.
If we want to create a city that works for everyone.
Exact.
This has been a really fascinating look at the world of AI and urban planning.
It has.
It's clear that CityScope has the potential to make our cities so much better. It does. But it's up to all of us to make sure it's used ethically.
Yeah.
And with a commitment to equity and inclusion.
Well said.
And this conversation doesn't end here.
No, it doesn't.
We really encourage everyone listening to keep thinking about these issues.
And talking about them.
Absolutely.
What are your hopes and concerns about the future of AI in cities?
Yeah, share your thoughts in the comments.
Let's keep the conversation going.
And don't forget to follow at AI for the People on social media
Yes, please do.
to stay connected.
Right.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI and urban planning.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.